Hey guys, today I'm going to go over five things you can do so that you stop gassing out on the BJJ match. You have more endurance and you don't need rounds off. You can recover in between rounds fine, and this stuff will even help you train more frequently without being sore, getting injured. And just think about it like this, guys. So if you can train more frequently, you can acquire more skills. If you can spend more mat time, and that's something that I'm very thankful that I got into strength and conditioning since I was 17. So then when I came into jiu-jitsu, I already had this base, and I was never someone who needed to take rounds off. I could train very frequently, and as other guys would be kind of complain how sore they were, I was like never sore, and most of the time that's still the case. I've been at it for about 5 years, training like 6 days a week. So hopefully my body still holds up, and these tips still hold true. So tip number one: the art of timing and attention. And one of my coaches, Dave, he said something along these lines. Says jiu-jitsu is a lot about timing and tension, knowing, having the right time with things, and knowing when to apply tension and when not to apply tension. And that's huge in jiu-jitsu, just from a technique, being good at jiu-jitsu, but it's also huge from a conditioning standpoint. If you're putting and white belts do this all the time, if you put too much tension on something and you're holding on to things where it's not going to work out. It's basically using bad technique. So as you get better at jiu-jitsu, you know when to apply a lot of tension, when to relax, and your timing's better. And when you do that, when you're not going full tension all the time, you don't get winded as much, right? Because you're more efficient with energy. I think Gordon Ryan said once that, if you get tired in jiu-jitsu, your jiu-jitsu sucks. I'm not sure if that's really true or not, but it is a good point. Like, if you're exhausted doing jiu-jitsu for like a minute, you probably don't have the right tension. Now, I am a strength and conditioning coach. This isn't something that I probably can help you out with. So, if you feel like you're someone who does that, go to your coaches and ask for tips and really try to relax when you're rolling around. And I'm a brown belt, and I still have upper belts tell me the same thing. It's like, you just need to relax more. You're too tense. It's something that's probably we always will have to work on. But if it's like a minute, if you're exhausted in a minute, you're probably using too much of this tension, and you don't know when to relax and when to create that tension. That is going to be more a jiu-jitsu technique. So, it's not something that maybe you can apply right away, but if you get better at jiu-jitsu, number two is build the aerobic engine. So whenever people ask for like conditioning advice on like forums and groups, I see this stuff all the time. People always be like, "Oh, do hit, or do kettlebells." Now the truth is, that stuff can be great, but it's actually kind of worthless if you do not have a good base of strength and you don't have a good solid base of condition. Your aerobic fitness is what we use most in our life, and it's going to, a lot of times people just think aerobic fitness as being able to do something for a long period of time. And yes, it's going to enable you to do that, but what it does, it's the energy system that helps us recover. So if we have a great aerobic fitness, we can, even after a really hard round, we can recover faster. We can recover in like a minute. I know, like, I'll do like a comp round on a Saturday and I'll go really hard, and then within like a minute, maybe 90 seconds, but definitely 2 minutes, I feel fine. I'm ready to go again. And that's what the aerobic system does. It will enable you to train more frequently. You won't, like I mentioned before, I don't really get sore, so you won't get sore as much, and you'll recover between sessions. And just like I said before, if you recover faster during sessions, you can train more. And if you have better endurance and your heart rate's not going all crazy when you're training, you're going to probably have better training, because when your heart rate gets really high, that's when you get anxious, that's when you get fatigued, and when we're fatigued, we don't make good decisions. So, techniques won't really come to you. Might do dumb things. So just by having a better aerobic condition, you recover faster, but your roles and the quality of your training will probably be much higher. So what I would go by is, I would measure your resting heart rate first thing in the morning for a few days and just kind of average it out. If it's in like the high 60s and above, your aerobic system's probably in a very poor place, and you should spend some time developing it. If it's in the low 60s, I haven't checked mine in a while, but it's usually be like mid 50s, low 50s, sometimes high 40s. It's in a pretty good state. And the good thing about building the aerobic base is once you build it, it's very easy to maintain that. You could probably just maintain that with your jiu-jitsu training. But if it's not in a good place, you're going to want to build it. And ideally, how you build it is doing this 1 to 3 times a week. and you want to keep your heart rate between the 120 to 140-ish range. So this is a pace where you should be able to talk normal. You might be breathing a little heavy, but it shouldn't affect your breathing. If you're used to doing HIIT all the time, it would probably feel like it's too easy. But the reason why this is important is because it needs to be lower intensity enough so that our heart can fully fill with blood, and then it can pump. And then over time, by training this way, we increase how much blood our heart can pump per stroke. And if we can pump more blood per stroke, basically our body doesn't have to work as hard as we can. In order that to happen, we need to use exercises that are cyclical in nature, that doesn't create a lot of blood pressure. So sometimes people try to do like cardio with their strength training. This isn't the best suited for this style of training. So you want to do something cyclical, something like that. It's the same movement over and over. So like jogging, on the bike, on the elliptical, like I like sled dragging. And you want to do that for about 30-60 minutes, keeping yourself in the heart rate range. Now, this type of training is pretty boring, so what I like to do is do it in circuits. So I might go 2 minutes on the air bike, 2 minutes on the rower, drag the sled around for a little bit, and just repeat that for 30 minutes. And that's completely fine. You'll develop your aerobic fitness fine like that. Another idea that you like to do is just go on a machine where you can kind of be mindless with it, say the elliptical, and then take your tablet and you can just watch a movie or a TV show. Just pay attention to your heart rate so often. Sometimes I'll watch like old UFC fights. But that's how you're going to develop your aerobic conditioning, and that's something you really want to spend some time on. If like I said, it's a big issue. If you did your rested heart rate and it's in the high 60s. Train more BJJ. If you're new and you're like, oh, I need to get my gas up, but you haven't been training jiu-jitsu that long, you just have to train more jiu-jitsu. You have to really push yourself to train more jiu-jitsu, and then when you train it, you can't sit around every time you feel a little uncomfortable. It's super important to really push yourself. And then when you're exhausted and you do rolls, it's a great time to really focus on trying to relax your breathing. See if you can have good technique even when you're under fatigue. That's not only just going to improve your endurance and your fitness, but it's obviously going to improve your technique. Because if you can have good technique when you're exhausted, you have good technique when you're not exhausted. So I know it seems like a kind of silly one, but especially if you're just getting back into it, it will come if you train. Most of the time, it will come. It will definitely come if you just train jiu-jitsu. And especially if you add all the other stuff that I'm talking about in this video, such as building the aerobic base. So number 4 is get strength. Get strong. Strength is the biggest. If strength is your liability, it's going to mess you up on a few fronts. So if we talk about injury prevention, one of the best things about strength training is that you don't get hurt as much. And when you do get hurt, you can recover faster. And if you're strong, that really helps with the soreness thing. You're not going to be sore after a tough jiu-jitsu session. And the thing about strength from more an straight endurance standpoint is if you're weak, every technique you're using a high percentage of your max strength. And when you use a higher percentage of your max strength, guess what? Your heart rate goes up. You're working harder. So you're going to get exhausted a lot faster. Now, say if you spend some time getting strong, you build some muscle, build some strength, and now all the techniques you're using a very small percentage of your strength. You're not going to get tired. It's not hard for you. So you'll be able to maintain your good technique for a long time without getting your heart rate out of control, without building too much fatigue. The lactic acid that gets in your arms when you're holding a position too long, that will happen. So here's a few general guidelines. Strength train maybe 1 to 3 times a week. Focus on the 5 fundamental movement patterns. So you want to pick ones that don't beat up your joints, right? So when I say squat, I don't necessarily mean like a heavy barbell squat, but a squat that you can do pain-free. So some type of squat, some type of single leg exercise, some type of upper push, so that would be like a push-up or some type of press. An upper pull, that would be some type of row, lat pull down, chin up. And hinge, so that'd be like some type of hip thruster, RDL, kettlebell swings, deadlifts, things like that. And you want to get strong with those. Usually if you get strong and the rep ranges of 5 to 12 reps for 2 to 3 hard sets, you're in a really good place. The good thing, if you're just training strength training to get good at jiu-jitsu so you don't get hurt and you have a little better performance on the mat, you don't have to do a ton of sets. 1 to 2 hard sets twice a week is going to be plenty. Now, if you want to build some muscle mass, you might have to train more, might do more sets in volumes, but a little really goes a long way here. Number 5, sleep, eat, stress, This is super important. And you might be surprised how much this really affects your endurance. Like lack of sleep. Anyone who's had like a newborn and they're not sleeping well knows how just exhausted and fatigued not getting sleep can be. And same thing goes with nutrition. If you're not having a high quality nutrients, or even if you're not eating enough calories, it can really fatigue you. And I always notice this, like if I have to like cut weight fast for a tournament, like I always notice that when my rows, like I will get fatigued faster. My endurance will really like plummet really fast. So if you're not recovering well, if you're not sleeping well, if you're not fueling your body, it's going to definitely affect you. So let's just go into the basic stuff. Basic nutrition stuff you probably heard a ton is make sure you eat plenty of protein. So usually that's about 1 gram per pound of body weight, or if you have a bit of weight to lose, you might go like goal body weight, or if you your lean muscle mass, you might go like 1 gram per lean body mass. Try to have about five servings combined fruits and veggies per day. Have unprocessed starchy carbohydrates around your workouts. Carbs are your best fuel source, so I always like you want to have most of your carbs around your workouts. That will help either fuel your workouts and help you recover, and then some carbs at night, because when you eat carbs at night, it helps relax the body and you'll get a better night of sleep. Some sleep tips. Usually what they say is 7 to 9 hours. If that's not possible, what they've shown is that the more hours you can get before 12 a.m., the more effective your sleep is going to be. So even if you can only get 6 hours, the more, if you can get 2 or 3 hours before 12 a.m., that's going to be more productive if they're after 12 a.m. So for example, in general, like you want to make sure that you're sleeping by 10 p.m. for most nights, and I find that's probably doable for most people. And this will also obviously depend on how early you have to get up. But again, more sleep before 12 a.m. the better off. So those are 5 tips how you can improve your endurance. First one is pay attention to your tension and your technique. That's going to be huge. Number 2, test your morning heart rate. See if you need to develop your aerobic fitness. Number 3, just train more jiu-jitsu. That's always going to help. And when you do that, make sure you're not sitting out rounds. You have to push yourself a little bit. 4th is strength training. And then 5, make sure your recovery and your nutrition habits isn't a liability. If you have any questions on this stuff, or if you want my specific help, I have a one-on-one coaching program where I'll write you a program. I'll give you nutrition support. I'll put the link in the description just in case if you're interested. I'd love to hear from you.